Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economic Series. Today, we're going to explore a fascinating question. What if every single purchase you made was an act of worship?
So, in this explainer, we're going to take a journey to really understand the unique framework of Islamic consumer behavior. We'll start by looking beyond those conventional economic models, and then we'll dive deep into the moral principles that shape every single decision. We'll also explore the Sharia-based hierarchy of needs, see what real-world factors come into play, and then, bring it all together to understand what a truly moral economy looks like. All right, let's start at the very foundation. We're going to challenge the core assumptions of traditional consumer theory, and then, piece by piece, build up the Islamic framework, from its core principles all the way to how it applies in our daily lives. Let's get right to the heart of it. The universally accepted model of a consumer is, well, someone who is always trying to maximize their personal satisfaction. But is that really all there is to it? You see, conventional economics is almost entirely built on this idea of maximizing your own personal utility, getting the most you can for yourself. But the Islamic perspective just completely reframes that goal. It's not just about me. It's about achieving something much, much bigger, Maslaha, which is all about the well-being and welfare of the entire community. And that shift it's profound. We're moving from a focus on just individual wants to the collective and spiritual well-being of society. And all of a sudden, every purchase you make isn't just a simple transaction anymore. It becomes an act of worship, a form of ibadah, and an act of accountability.
So if every transaction is an act of accountability, then what are the rules of the road? Well, a Muslim consumer operates within a set of divine boundaries, right? These are principles derived directly from the Quran and Sunnah that guide every choice they make. The first and most fundamental filter is the distinction between halal, what's permissible, and haram, what's forbidden. This is the absolute non-negotiable starting point. It's the primary gatekeeper for every single economic choice a Muslim makes. Next up, we have the principle of Wasatiyyah, or moderation. Now, in a world that is constantly telling us more is better, this principle instills a really powerful discipline. It's all about finding that righteous middle path, avoiding both stinginess and a life of total excess. And this leads us directly to the prohibition of Israf, or waste. The crucial insight here is that consumption has to be responsible and sustainable. In the Islamic worldview, the resources we have are a trust from God, an amana, not something to just be squandered for our fleeting desires. Now, when you put these principles together, social responsibility and accountability to God, what you get is this powerful internal compass. This isn't about external regulations. It's an internal monitor that aligns every consumer choice with a broader ethical framework, always considering the impact on society. And this illustrates so well how these concepts aren't just a random list of rules. They actually form a coherent, interconnected system. You can see how the things that determine our behavior, like religiosity, get filtered through these core Islamic principles. And this, in turn, leads to specific outcomes, like balanced consumption and social welfare, all flowing from that central idea of the Islamic consumer. So we have these powerful principles, but how do they actually work in practice? How does a consumer decide where to spend their money within this moral framework? Well, the answer lies in the Maqasid al-Sharia, the higher objectives of Islamic law. This framework gives us a disciplined, needs-based system for making our consumption choices. It's a fundamental shift away from a model that's just driven by pure, unguided desire towards one that's structured and deeply purposeful.
Think of it like a pyramid. At the very bottom, the foundation, we have Daruriyyat, the absolute essentials we need to preserve our faith, life, intellect, lineage, and property. Only once those are totally secured do we move up to Hajiyyat, which are the complementary needs that remove hardship from life. And then finally, at the very top, we have Tahsiniyyat, the embellishments or luxuries, which can only be pursued after all the other needs are met.
Okay, now that we've laid out the ideal framework, let's get practical. What are the real-world factors that influence a Muslim consumer's behavior on a day-to-day basis?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because while income, of course, determines what can be spent, it's factors like a person's religiosity and their knowledge of Islamic principles that strongly dictate how that money ought to be spent. These moral factors act as a crucial check on just pure economic potential.
This is a key departure from conventional economic models, where higher income often leads directly to higher spending on luxuries, with very few moral constraints. In the Islamic framework, though,
Wealth doesn't just mean more spending power, it means greater responsibility.
So what does this all add up to? When we put all these pieces together, what's the big picture?
What emerges is a holistic economic system, a true moral economy where every single transaction is imbued with meaning. It's a system that constantly connects our personal choices to the well-being of our society and, ultimately, to our accountability to God. Ultimately, this synthesis of the material and the spiritual provides a really comprehensive and powerful framework for understanding a significant and, frankly, growing segment of the global economy. The goal isn't to reject economic activity, but to elevate it, to give it a higher purpose.
This holistic model really shows us that consumption doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. It can be a powerful tool for both personal fulfillment and the greater good, creating a beautiful harmony between our needs in this world and our ultimate purpose in the hereafter. See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.